Determinism is the philosophical theory that all events, including human actions, are ultimately determined by causes external to the will. This doctrine suggests that every state of affairs, including the choices we make, is the inevitable result of antecedent conditions. The roots of determinism trace back to ancient Greek philosophy, with thinkers like Democritus positing that the universe operates on mechanical principles. In modern times, determinism has evolved to intersect with fields like physics, neuroscience, and ethics, offering diverse perspectives on the nature of causation and freedom. Philosophers often distinguish between different types of determinism, such as causal, logical, and theological determinism. Causal determinism holds that every event is necessitated by previous events and conditions, combined with the laws of nature. Logical determinism, on the other hand, concerns the idea that future propositions are already true or false, implying a fixed future. Theological determinism attributes the unfolding of events to divine preordination. These distinctions serve as the foundation for various debates on free will and moral responsibility. Critics of determinism often argue that it undermines the concept of free will, posing a challenge to notions of personal autonomy and accountability. Yet proponents contend that understanding the deterministic nature of the universe can enhance our comprehension of human behavior and lead to a more compassionate society. The tension between these views has made determinism a central topic in philosophy and beyond. The history of determinism reveals its enduring relevance across centuries and cultures. Ancient Greek philosophers like Leucippus and Democritus were among the first to articulate deterministic ideas, envisioning the universe as a complex interplay of atoms governed by natural laws. Their mechanistic worldview laid the groundwork for later scientific and philosophical developments. In the medieval period, theological determinism took center stage, with thinkers like Augustine of Hippo and John Calvin exploring the implications of divine omniscience and predestination. Calvin's doctrine of predestination, for instance, argued that God's foreknowledge of events did not negate human freedom, but rather reflected divine sovereignty. The Enlightenment era witnessed a resurgence of deterministic thought, driven by advances in science and mathematics. Isaac Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation reinforced the idea of a predictable, clockwork universe. Philosophers like Pierre-Simon Laplace extended this perspective, proposing that if an intellect could know the position and velocity of every particle, it could predict the future with certainty. Despite these historical advancements, the deterministic framework faced challenges from emergent theories like quantum mechanics in the 20th century. Quantum indeterminacy, introduced by figures like Heisenberg, suggested that at a subatomic level, events could be probabilistic rather than determined. This tension between classical and quantum perspectives continues to shape contemporary discussions of determinism. Causal determinism asserts that every event or state of affairs is determined by preceding events in accordance with natural laws. This perspective has profound implications for our understanding of the universe, suggesting that every action, from the formation of galaxies to human decisions, is part of an unbroken chain of cause and effect. One of the strongest arguments for causal determinism comes from the predictive success of scientific inquiry. From the motion of planets to the behavior of chemical reactions, natural phenomena often adhere to predictable patterns. This consistency has bolstered the deterministic view that the universe operates under fixed laws. However, causal determinism raises significant philosophical questions, particularly about free will. If our choices are the result of prior causes, can we truly be said to act freely? Philosophers like Baruch Spinoza and Paul Holbach argued that free will is an illusion, a subjective experience arising from our ignorance of underlying causes. Critics of causal determinism often point to emergent phenomena and the role of randomness in complex systems. For instance, chaotic systems, such as weather patterns, are sensitive to initial conditions and can produce seemingly unpredictable outcomes. While this does not refute determinism outright, it highlights the limits of human understanding in predicting certain events. Logical determinism revolves around the principle that the truth value of future propositions is fixed, implying that the future is as immutable as the past. This perspective is rooted in the law of excluded middle, which states that every proposition is either true or false, even if the event it describes has not yet occurred. For example, consider the proposition, "It will rain tomorrow." Logical determinism holds that this statement is either true or false, regardless of our current knowledge. If the truth value is already determined, it suggests that the future is fixed and unalterable. Critics of logical determinism, such as Aristotle, have argued that it conflates the truth of propositions with the necessity of events. In his work, De Interpretation, Aristotle proposed that statements about future contingents lack a definitive truth value until the event occurs. This view seeks to preserve the openness of the future while maintaining logical coherence. The implications of logical determinism extend to debates on free will and moral responsibility. If the future is predetermined, can individuals be held accountable for their actions? Proponents of compatibilism argue that freedom and determinism are not mutually exclusive, suggesting that individuals can act freely within a deterministic framework. Theological determinism explores the relationship between divine attributes, such as omniscience and omnipotence, and the unfolding of events in the universe. This perspective posits that God's foreknowledge or will determines all that occurs, raising profound questions about human freedom and moral responsibility. One form of theological determinism, known as strong determinism, asserts that God directly wills every event, leaving no room for human autonomy. This view is often associated with doctrines of predestination, as articulated by figures like Calvin. Another form, known as weak determinism, suggests that God's foreknowledge does not necessitate events, but merely reflects their inevitability. Critics of theological determinism argue that it undermines the concept of free will and moral agency. If all actions are predetermined by divine will, can individuals be held accountable for their choices? This concern has led to various theological responses, such as the Molinist view, which posits that God's knowledge includes counterfactuals, allowing for human freedom within a deterministic framework. Despite these debates, theological determinism continues to influence discussions on the nature of God, the problem of evil, and the purpose of human existence. Its implications resonate not only within religious contexts, but also in broader philosophical inquiries into the nature of causation and agency. Determinism remains one of the most compelling and contentious topics in philosophy, bridging the gap between metaphysics, science, and ethics. The various forms of determinism, causal, logical, and theological, offer nuanced perspectives on the nature of causation and the extent of human freedom. While critics argue that determinism challenges the very notion of free will and moral responsibility, proponents suggest that it provides a framework for understanding the complexities of the universe and human behavior. The historical evolution of deterministic thought, from ancient Greek atomism to modern debates influenced by quantum mechanics, underscores its enduring relevance. Whether seen as a challenge to personal autonomy or a pathway to deeper compassion and understanding, determinism invites us to question our assumptions about choice, responsibility, and the nature of reality. By exploring these intricate debates, we gain not only a richer philosophical perspective, but also a greater appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things.